My twin sister locked me out of our mother's funeral. She stood at the church doors with security, her black dress pressed perfectly, her makeup flawless even through manufactured tears. She looked at me like I was a stranger trying to crash a private event. Like I hadn't spent 3 months sleeping in hospital chairs while our mother died slowly, painfully, asking for me in the dark hours when Nora was nowhere to be found. 6 months later, the lawyer read the will. Only one daughter's name appeared in that document. Not hers, mine. If you've ever been erased by your own family, if you've ever been the shadow while someone else took all the light, leave a like right now. Comment where you're watching from. Subscribe. Because what I'm about to tell you, you'll never forget. My name is Elena Ward, and this is how I went from invisible to inevitable. We were born 2 minutes apart. I came second. And from that moment on, I was always 2 steps behind. Richmond, Virginia summers smelled like magnolias and sweet tea. Our house was pale blue with a white porch that wrapped around the front. The kind of house that looked perfect in photographs. Inside, the coffee maker started at 6 every morning, filling the kitchen with warmth. But warmth wasn't distributed equally in the Ward household. I remember being 6 years old, sitting on the living room floor with my sister. We looked identical. Same dark hair, same green eyes, same small scar on our left knees from falling off our bikes on the same day. But my mother looked at us like we were completely different species. Nora got the name that meant something. Our mother spent weeks choosing it, reading baby name books, circling options. Mine was picked last minute. Elena, simple, done. When we turned 7, our parents redecorated. Nora's room became a princess paradise. Soft pink walls, white furniture with gold handles, a canopy bed with sheer curtains. I watched through her doorway as my father hung star-shaped lights above her bed. My room stayed the same. Beige walls, basic furniture. When I asked why, my mother said I was more practical, that I didn't care about those things. I was 7. I cared about everything. Our birthdays were the worst. Same day, different celebrations. Nora got parties with themes and matching decorations, clowns when she was 8, a pottery painting party when she was 10, a pool party with a DJ when she was 12. I got cake with immediate family, and maybe one friend if I was lucky. When I asked why we couldn't share one big party, my mother said Nora needed to feel special. As if I didn't. School amplified everything. When we brought home report cards with the same grades, the reactions split down the middle. Nora got praised for being naturally smart. I got praised for working hard, like my intelligence was just persistence, not ability. When Nora made the school play, my mother took off work to attend every rehearsal. When I made the debate team, she asked if it was really necessary for her to come to competitions. I started believing something was fundamentally wrong with me. That I was the flawed copy. The rough draft. The version that didn't quite work out, so they tried again and got Nora. My father, Arthur, was a quiet man. He restored antique furniture in his workshop behind the house, losing himself in wood grain and varnish. He loved us both, I think, but he loved peace more. And peace meant not questioning why one daughter glowed while the other dimmed. My older brother Caleb was already a teenager when we were small, already pulling away from family drama. He became a police officer later, trained to see patterns and problems. But back then, he just wanted out. There was one person who noticed. Our Aunt Fiona, my mother's sister. She would visit on holidays and watch the dynamic with careful eyes. Once, when I was 9, she pulled me aside in the kitchen. She said, "Sometimes families get things wrong, but that doesn't mean you're less." She never said it again, never intervened, just watched. By the time I was 10, I had learned my role. I was the helper, the responsible one. The one who made sure Nora didn't miss the school bus. The one who covered when she forgot her homework. The one who apologized when she fought with friends. I became her safety net, and she learned to fall without fear because I was always there to catch her. Nora grew louder, more confident. She walked into rooms and claimed space. I grew quieter. I learned to make myself small, unobtrusive, easy to overlook. It wasn't kindness. It was survival. If I didn't compete, maybe she wouldn't feel the need to crush me. But she crushed me anyway. Not with malice. With indifference. with the casual cruelty of someone who never had to consider my feelings because mine simply mattered less. I remember one particular Christmas when we were 14. Nora got a laptop for school. I got books. She got a new wardrobe. I got 3 shirts. When I said something, my mother said I was being ungrateful, that I should be happy with what I got. Nora didn't even notice the imbalance. Why would she? She lived in a world where she was the sun and I was a distant, forgettable moon. And the worst part was, I still loved her. She was my sister, my twin, my genetic match. I kept thinking if I was good enough, kind enough, useful enough, maybe one day she would see me. Maybe one day they all would. I didn't know yet that some people are incapable of seeing past themselves, that no matter how bright you shine, they'll find a way to stand in your light. High school made everything worse. We were 16, and suddenly appearance mattered more than ever. Nora got contact lenses while I kept my glasses. She got her hair professionally styled every month. I trimmed mine myself in the bathroom. She got a clothing allowance. I got hand-me-downs, which is insane when you think about it, because we were the same age. They were her clothes she didn't want anymore, and I was supposed to be grateful. College was supposed to be my fresh start. I got into Virginia Commonwealth University with a partial scholarship. I was proud. My mother said that was nice, then spent 20 minutes talking about how Nora was going to the same school but studying communications, which was so perfect for her personality. I worked 2 jobs to cover what my scholarship didn't. Morning shifts at a campus coffee shop, evening shifts at a catering company. Nora got full tuition paid by our parents and a monthly allowance for expenses. When I asked why the difference, my father said I was more independent, that I didn't need as much help. What he meant was, Nora couldn't survive without support, so she got it all. The catering job became my refuge. I loved the precision of it, the way flavors built into something greater than their parts, the way a well-executed event made people happy. My boss, an older woman named Christine, actually saw my potential. She taught me everything: plating, timing, client management. For the first time in my life, someone valued my work without comparison. But Nora found ways to invade even that. She started borrowing my clothes without asking. I would lay out an outfit for a catering event, something professional and clean, and find it missing. She would wear it to some party, spill something on it, and return it ruined. When I confronted her, she laughed and said we were twins. What's mine is hers. My parents agreed. They said I was being petty. Then she started taking my ideas. I mentioned wanting to start a small baking business on the side. 2 weeks later, Nora announced she was launching a cupcake Instagram page. She used my recipes, ones I had developed and tested. When I said something, she said I was being competitive, that ideas couldn't be owned. My mother told me to be supportive of my sister's entrepreneurial spirit. The worst was when she took David. He was a guy I had been seeing for 3 months. Nothing serious yet, but something real. We met at the catering company. He worked in event setup. He was kind. He laughed at my jokes. He saw me. I made the mistake of introducing him to my family at Sunday dinner. Nora turned on her charm like a spotlight, touching his arm, laughing too loud at his stories, asking for his number to coordinate a group hangout that never happened. 2 weeks later, I found out they were dating, not from either of them. From a mutual friend who thought I knew. When I confronted Nora, she said she couldn't help that he liked her better. That maybe if I had been more fun, more interesting, he would have chosen me. My mother said I was overreacting, that I couldn't call dibs on people, that Nora and David just had better chemistry. I stopped bringing people around after that. Friends noticed. My roommate, Jessica, asked why I never talked about my family. I said we weren't close. She said that was sad. You only get one family. I didn't tell her that sometimes one family is exactly the problem. Another friend, Marcus from my catering job, was more direct. He said my sister walked all over me and I let her. He said my family treated me like an unpaid assistant and I accepted it. He said I needed therapy. I got defensive. I said he didn't understand family dynamics, that it was complicated. But his words stuck in my head like splinters. Every time I tried to establish boundaries, I was met with the same response. I was too sensitive. I was imagining things. I was jealous. Nora would cry and say I was being cruel, that she loved me and couldn't understand why I was attacking her. My parents would side with her immediately. The narrative became, Elena is the problem. Elena is bitter. Elena can't be happy for her sister. I started doubting my own reality. Was I imagining the imbalance? Was I actually jealous and disguising it as hurt? Was I the toxic one? Then our mother got sick. I was 26. The diagnosis came fast and brutal. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctor said months, maybe a year with treatment. My world stopped. My mother, for all her faults, was still my mother. The idea of losing her made everything else seem trivial. I moved back home to help. Nora stayed in her apartment across town, saying she needed space to process. I took over daily care. Doctor appointments, medication schedules, meal prep for the nausea, middle of the night wake-ups when she couldn't sleep through the pain. My father tried to help, but he was drowning in his own grief, spending more and more time in his workshop, the smell of wood stain covering the smell of sickness. Nora visited on good days. Days when our mother was lucid and could sit up. She would arrive with flowers and stay for an hour, taking photos, posting about how hard this journey was for our family. Then she would leave before the hard parts, before the vomiting, before the crying, before the raw, ugly truth of watching someone die slowly. My mother never asked where Nora was during the bad nights. She never thanked me for staying. She would hold my hand sometimes, too weak to speak, and I would tell myself that meant something, that she saw me, that in the end, she knew. I was wrong. 3 months before she died, something changed. My mother started making phone calls when I wasn't in the room, meeting with lawyers, updating documents. I thought she was getting her affairs in order, which made sense. I didn't think much of it. When she died, it was 4 a.m. on a Tuesday in October. I was holding her hand. My father was asleep in the chair next to the bed. Caleb was on duty, couldn't make it in time. Nora didn't answer her phone. The funeral was a nightmare I'm still trying to wake up from. But that's a story that deserves its own telling. All I knew then was that I had given everything. My time, my energy, my money from reduced work hours, my heart. And somehow I knew it still wouldn't be enough. The funeral was scheduled for Saturday, 3 days after my mother died. I spent those days in a fog, arranging flowers I couldn't afford, writing an obituary that would never capture who she was, calling distant relatives who expressed sympathy that felt like reading from a script. Nora took over the planning. She said I was too emotional, too close to it, that I needed to rest. I was too exhausted to fight. She chose the church, the flowers, the music, the guest list. I thought she was trying to help, trying to take the burden off me for once. I should have known better. The morning of the funeral, I woke up at 5. I couldn't sleep. I put on the black dress I had bought specifically for this day, simple and respectful. I did my makeup carefully, trying to hide the exhaustion, the weight loss, the evidence of 3 months of grief. I wanted to look strong for my mother. I wanted her to be proud, wherever she was. I arrived at the church at 9. The service was at 10. I wanted time to sit with the casket before everyone arrived, to say a private goodbye, to tell her things I never got to say while she was alive. The parking lot was nearly empty. I walked up the stone steps, my heels clicking in the quiet morning. The church doors were those heavy wooden ones that required real effort to open, but before I could reach them, someone stepped out. Nora. She was wearing a black designer dress, something expensive and perfectly fitted. Her hair was styled. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like she was going to a gala, not a funeral. She looked at me, and there was something in her expression I had never seen before, something cold. Behind her stood a man I didn't recognize, large, official-looking, security. My heart started beating faster. Something was wrong. I tried to step forward. The security guard moved to block me. I looked at Nora, confused, waiting for her to tell him it was okay, that I was her sister, that this was obviously a mistake. She didn't. Instead, she said, in a voice that was perfectly calm, perfectly certain, "You're not coming in." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because my brain couldn't process what was happening. "What are you talking about? Nora, move. I need to get inside." She crossed her arms. "This is a private service. Family only." "I am family." My voice was getting louder. People were starting to arrive. They slowed down, watching. "I'm her daughter. I'm your sister. You'll make a scene." She said it like it was fact. Like I was already causing a problem just by existing. "You're too emotional. You'll embarrass us. Mom wouldn't have wanted that." My hands started shaking. I was there every single night, every doctor appointment, every time she was scared. Where were you? I was dealing with this in my own way. Not everyone processes grief by becoming a martyr. She looked at the security guard. "She's not on the list. Don't let her in." I tried to push past. The guard, just doing his job, held up a hand, firm but not aggressive. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." "You can't do this." I was crying now, openly, desperately. "She's my mother. I have a right to be here." Nora leaned in close. She smelled like expensive perfume. She whispered so only I could hear. "She chose me, not you. She always chose me. And you need to accept that." Then she turned and walked back into the church, the doors closing behind her with a heavy final sound. I stood there. People walked past me. Some looked sympathetic. Most looked uncomfortable. No one stopped. No one asked if I was okay. No one questioned why a daughter was being kept from her mother's funeral. My father arrived 20 minutes later. He saw me standing outside. I expected him to be outraged, to demand I be let in, to finally stand up for me. He just looked tired, so tired. He said quietly, "Please don't make this harder than it already is." Then he walked inside too. I called Caleb. He was already inside. He came out briefly, his police uniform somehow making him look more helpless than authoritative. He said he was sorry, that Nora had organized everything, that the church had a right to enforce their guest list, that maybe it was better if I just went home and said goodbye in my own way. My own brother, a police officer, and he did nothing. I sat in my car in that parking lot for 2 hours. I could hear the music through the walls. I could see people filing in and out. I watched them celebrate and mourn a woman I had spent 3 months watching die, a woman whose hand I held when she took her last breath. And I was in a parking lot, outside, excluded. I cried until I had nothing left, until my throat was raw and my eyes were swollen and my chest ached from the force of it. I cried for my mother, for the relationship we never had, for the love I kept trying to earn and never received, for all the times I told myself it would get better and it never did. When the funeral ended, people streamed out. Some saw me sitting there. Some looked away quickly. No one approached. I was a ghost, a problem, an inconvenience. Nora left surrounded by people, accepting condolences, playing the grieving daughter role with practiced perfection. She didn't even glance in my direction. I drove home in a daze. Not to my childhood home, but to my small apartment across town where I had been living before moving back to help with my mother's care. I walked inside. I looked around at my tiny space, at my simple furniture, at the life I had put on hold, and I realized something. I was done. I was done begging for scraps of love from people who had chosen not to give it. I was done making myself smaller so Nora could be bigger. I was done accepting crumbs and calling it a feast. I was done. That night, I blocked Nora's number. I stopped answering my father's calls. I told Caleb I needed space. I didn't announce it. I didn't explain. I just quietly, completely walked away. I went back to work at the catering company. Christine welcomed me back, gave me more hours, promoted me to event coordinator. I threw myself into it. I stayed late. I took every job. I learned everything I could about food, presentation, client relations, business management. I started therapy with a woman named Dr. Sarah Chen, who didn't let me get away with self-blame. She asked hard questions. She made me sit with uncomfortable truths. She taught me that I didn't cause my family's dysfunction, that I couldn't fix it by being better, that the only person I could save was myself. I deleted social media. I avoided places I might run into Nora. I built a life that didn't include them, not out of revenge, but out of survival. Months passed. 6 months. Nora tried to reach out a few times. Casual texts. "Hey, we should talk. Dad is worried about you. Why are you being like this?" I didn't respond. I didn't know it then, but my mother had left me one final gift. Something that would change everything. Something that would prove, once and for all, who she really saw. But that revelation was still coming. And when it came, it would shatter Nora's carefully constructed world into pieces she couldn't put back together. 6 months after the funeral, I was a different person. Not because I wanted revenge, not because I was trying to prove anything, but because when you stop performing for an audience that never applauded, you finally have energy to build something real. Christine promoted me to senior event coordinator. I was managing teams, designing menus, handling high-profile clients. A tech company hired us for their annual gala, 500 guests, 7 courses. I executed it flawlessly. The CEO personally thanked me, asked for my card, said he would recommend us to everyone he knew. For the first time in my life, I was being recognized for my work, not compared to anyone. Not measured against someone else's achievements, just seen for what I could do. I started saving money, real money, without having to cover family emergencies or lend to Nora, who never paid back. I got my own place, a small 1-bedroom apartment with large windows and space for a real kitchen. I bought furniture I actually liked, not hand-me-downs or clearance items. I hung art on the walls. I made it mine. Dr. Chen helped me understand something crucial. My family didn't treat me poorly because I wasn't good enough. They treated me poorly because the dynamic required a scapegoat, and I had accepted the role. Nora needed to be superior. My parents needed to believe one child was more special to justify the inequality, and I needed to stop participating in my own erasure. I cut my hair. Nothing dramatic, just shorter, different. For the first time since we were born, Nora and I didn't look identical. It felt like freedom. Through mutual friends, through small-town gossip, I heard things about Nora. Her Instagram cupcake business failed. Turns out taking photos of desserts is different from running an actual business. She had no work ethic, no follow-through, no understanding that success required effort. When the attention dried up, so did her interest. She got fired from a retail job for showing up late too many times. She was living off credit cards and our father's guilt money. Her relationship with David, the guy she stole from me, ended badly. Apparently, he got tired of being an accessory to her image. I felt nothing hearing these things. Not satisfaction, not pity, just distance, like hearing about a stranger's problems. My father reached out occasionally. Awkward phone calls where he asked how I was doing in a way that suggested he didn't actually want to know. I kept responses brief. I'm fine. Work is good. Take care. I didn't give him ammunition to share with Nora. I didn't give him a way back in. Caleb tried harder. He showed up at my apartment one evening, still in uniform, looking uncomfortable. He said he was sorry, that he should have stood up for me at the funeral, that he was a coward. I appreciated the apology, but I told him sorry doesn't erase what happened. He asked if we could try again. I said maybe, eventually, but not now. He started texting me weekly. Just small things. Updates about his life. Jokes. Articles he thought I'd find interesting. He didn't ask for anything back. Just slowly, carefully, tried to rebuild something he had helped break. I let him. Slowly. Christine noticed the change in me. She said I carried myself differently, more confident, more present. She asked if I had ever thought about starting my own business. I admitted I had years ago, but never felt ready. She said I was ready now. We started planning. A small catering company focused on intimate events, high quality, personal service, creative menus. Something mine. I worked on business plans late into the night. I saved every extra dollar. I researched permits and licenses and insurance. And then, 6 months and 2 weeks after my mother died, I got a call from a lawyer named Richard Hartwell. He said he represented my mother's estate and needed to schedule a meeting with the family to read the will. He said it was important that everyone attend. I almost laughed, as if I wanted to sit in a room with people who had excluded me from my own mother's funeral. But something in his tone made me curious, something formal and careful, so I agreed. The meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday at 2 p.m. at his office downtown. I took the afternoon off work. I wore a simple black dress, professional and unremarkable. I wasn't there to make an impression. I was there because I had a legal obligation to attend. I arrived exactly on time. The law office was old Richmond money, dark wood paneling, leather chairs, oil paintings of men who looked important. The receptionist told me to wait, that the others were already in the conference room. Of course they were. Of course Nora would arrive early to control the narrative. When I walked into that conference room, I felt the air change. Nora sat at the far end of the table, my father next to her, Caleb across from them. They all looked up when I entered. Nora's expression was unreadable. My father looked uncomfortable. Caleb gave me a small nod. I sat at the opposite end of the table, as far from Nora as physically possible. Richard Hartwell entered with a folder and a somber expression. He was older, gray hair, wire-rimmed glasses, the kind of lawyer who had seen every family drama play out and was immune to surprise. He opened the folder. He began with formalities: date of the will, sound mind and body, all assets accounted for. Standard legal language that felt like it was stretching time. Then he got to the actual distribution of assets, and my world tilted. He read in a slow, clear voice. I, Margaret Ward, leave my house at 1847 Maple Street, along with all personal belongings therein, and the entirety of my investment portfolio, to my daughter, Elena Ward. Silence. Just my name. Not both of us. Not shared. Just me. Nora's face went white, then red. She looked at the lawyer like he had made a mistake. That can't be right. Richard looked at her calmly. This is the will your mother updated 11 months before her death. She was very clear about her wishes. But I'm her daughter, too. Nora's voice was rising. She wouldn't just exclude me. There has to be another document. Something else. There isn't. He handed her a copy of the will. Notarized, witnessed, legal, absolute. My father was crying, quiet tears that ran down his face without sound. Caleb stared at the table. Nora stood up so fast her chair fell backward. This is because of her, she pointed at me. She poisoned Mom against me. She was there every day, manipulating her, making me look bad. I stayed silent, let her unravel. She was the sick one's favorite because she had nothing else going for her. No life, no friends, no personality. So she made herself indispensable to a dying woman and got paid for it. Richard cleared his throat. Mrs. Ward updated this will before your mother's terminal diagnosis. This was not a decision made under duress or manipulation. Nora turned to my father. Say something. This isn't fair. He looked at her, then at me, then back to his hands. I don't know what to say. That's when I spoke. My voice was steady, calm, clear. I was at the funeral. You locked me out. The room froze. I held her hand when she died. I was there for every appointment, every bad night, every moment of pain. And you locked me out of her funeral. Tears were streaming down my face, but my voice never wavered. She didn't exclude you from the will because I manipulated her. She excluded you because she saw who we really were, and she made her choice. Nora looked like I had physically struck her. She grabbed her purse and stormed out, the door slamming behind her hard enough to rattle the picture frames. My father left quietly after her. Caleb stayed for a moment. He said, I think she knew you would be okay. That's why she left it to you. I don't know if that was true, but it was kind of him to say it. I didn't move into my mother's house immediately. I needed time to process what had happened, to understand that this wasn't a dream or a mistake, that my mother, in her final act, had seen me, had chosen me, had left me something that couldn't be taken away. When I finally walked back into that pale blue house with the white porch, everything looked smaller. The rooms where I had felt so invisible now felt like they were waiting for something new. My mother's things were still there. Her coffee maker, her reading glasses on the kitchen table, the smell of her lavender soap still lingering in the bathroom. I cried. Not from sadness exactly, but from release. From the weight of a lifetime of being second finally lifting off my shoulders. I spent weeks going through her belongings. I found things that surprised me. A baby book she had kept for me, filled with photos and milestones I never knew she documented. A letter she had started writing to me years ago, but never finished. A box of my old school awards she had saved. Maybe she did see me. in her own complicated, imperfect way. Maybe she just didn't know how to show it while she was alive. Or maybe she was too afraid of Nora's reaction to treat us equally. I'll never know for sure. My father came by one afternoon. He stood on the porch looking lost. He asked if he could come in. I let him. He sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we had eaten countless silent dinners, and he cried. He said he was sorry, that he had failed me, that he chose peace over justice and regretted it every day. I told him sorry doesn't erase what happened, but I also told him he could visit, that I didn't hate him, that I understood he was trying to survive in his own way. He asked if he could stay for a while, said the house felt too empty without my mother, too full of memories. I said yes. Not because I forgave everything, but because he was trying. Finally, trying. He moved into the guest room. We existed in careful politeness at first. He made coffee in the mornings. I cooked dinners. We watched television in separate rooms. Slowly, carefully, we started talking. Small things. His furniture restoration projects. My catering business plans. Nothing deep. But it was something. Caleb came by regularly. He helped me clean out the garage, repair the porch railing, paint the kitchen. He didn't ask for forgiveness anymore. He just showed up, consistent, present, proving through action what words couldn't fix. I started transforming the house, not completely, but strategically. I converted the dining room into a consultation space for catering clients. I upgraded the kitchen with commercial-grade equipment. I hired a lawyer to help me file the paperwork for Elena's Kitchen, a small catering company specializing in intimate, high-end events. Christine was my first investor. She believed in me enough to stake her reputation on my success. We started small: dinner parties, baby showers, engagement celebrations, word spread, my attention to detail, my ability to make people feel special, my genuine care for creating memorable experiences. Within 6 months, I was booked solid. I hired staff. Young people like I had been, working multiple jobs, trying to build something. I paid them fairly. I taught them everything Christine had taught me. I created the kind of workplace I wished I'd had starting out. Nora disappeared for months after the will reading. No social media posts, no sightings around town. I heard through my father that she had moved in with a friend in North Carolina, trying to get her life together. I didn't ask for details. It wasn't my business anymore. Then, almost exactly 1 year after the will reading, she showed up at the house. Not the house anymore, really. Elena's Kitchen. The sign out front made it official. I was prepping for an event when the doorbell rang. I opened it expecting a delivery and found Nora standing there instead. She looked different. No makeup. Hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Jeans and a plain t-shirt. She looked like a person instead of a performance. She didn't say anything at first. Just stood there looking at the house. At me. At everything that had changed. Then quietly, "Can I come in?" I hesitated. Every instinct told me to say no, to protect the peace I had built. But something in her face stopped me. Exhaustion, humility, the absence of the armor she usually wore. I stepped aside. She walked into the kitchen, now full of stainless steel and prep stations. She looked around like she was seeing it for the first time. "You did all this?" "I did." She nodded slowly. "It's really nice, professional." We stood in uncomfortable silence. Finally, she said, "I'm sorry." I waited. Sorry is just a word without action. "I'm sorry for locking you out of the funeral, for treating you like you didn't matter, for taking things from you and acting like I deserved them more, for being cruel." Her voice cracked. "I don't have excuses. I was terrible to you. My whole life, I was terrible to you." "Why are you here, Nora?" She looked at me with red eyes. "Because I lost everything. My apartment, my friends, the real ones anyway. David, the respect of anyone who knew what I did. And I realized the only person who was ever actually there, who ever actually cared, was you. And I destroyed that." "You did." "I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I can't undo what I did, but I want to try to be better, and I don't know where else to start." I thought about it. about how easy it would be to slam the door in her face, to let her feel what I felt standing outside that church, about how satisfying revenge could be. But revenge already happened. She lost everything while I built everything. The universe balanced the scales without me having to do anything. You can help. The words surprised me as much as they surprised her. I have an event tomorrow. I need someone to help with dishes and prep. It doesn't pay much. It's not glamorous. But if you want to start somewhere, start there. She nodded quickly. Yes, okay, thank you. Don't thank me yet. I'm not doing this because I forgive you. I'm doing this because maybe you can learn what I learned. That real value comes from work, not from being chosen. She showed up the next day, and the day after that. She washed dishes. She chopped vegetables. She followed instructions without complaint. She didn't post about it on social media, didn't make it about her redemption arc, just quietly did the work. Clients didn't know who she was. To them, she was just staff. No special treatment, no spotlight. For the first time in her life, Nora was ordinary, and maybe that's what she needed to be. My father watched this unfold with quiet relief. Caleb was skeptical, but supportive. I remained cautious. 1 year of humility doesn't erase 37 years of harm, but it's a start. I'm 38 now. I run a successful business. I have a life I built without permission or approval. I have relationships based on mutual respect, not obligation. I wake up in my mother's house, in a bed I chose, in a room I painted, and I don't wonder if I'm enough. I am enough. I always was. This story isn't about revenge. It's about the moment you stop waiting for someone else to validate your existence and start living like you matter. Because you do. Even when your own family can't see it. Especially then. My mother left me more than a house. She left me proof. Proof that I wasn't crazy, that the inequality was real, that someone, even if just once, even if too late, chose me. And that proof gave me permission to choose myself. Every day, in every decision, without apology. This story, while dramatized, is inspired by the real experiences of countless individuals who have lived in the shadow of a sibling, constantly compared and chronically overlooked. Being genetically identical yet emotionally discarded teaches you something profound. Your worth was never determined by who saw you, but by who you chose to become when no one was looking. These aren't just stories. They are lessons in self-worth, resilience, and the courage to choose yourself when no one else does. Before you go, I want to ask you, have you ever been constantly compared to a sibling or someone close, and no matter what you did, you were never quite enough? For those who felt invisible in their own families, what was the moment you decided to finally see yourself, to stop waiting for validation that would never come? And if you could go back and tell your younger self one thing about your value, what would it be? If this story resonated with you, if you felt the pain, the struggle, and ultimately the liberation, write the word whole in the comments so I know you stayed until the end. And tell me, what city are you watching from? I'd love to know where this message is reaching. If you found value in this story, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story that might change how you see yourself. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's still fighting to be seen, someone who's still accepting crumbs and calling it love. And don't forget to click on the next video in the cards above, because every story here carries a message worth hearing. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And remember, you were never half of anyone. You were always whole.